if to understand where they're coming from, what they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. We can't comprehend it because it's way above we're not even a level 1 society yet. So it's way above where people, they get frustrated. I hear it even like on Bigfoot. People who believed in Bigfoot for years and years, all of a sudden change it and flop. Well, you know what? Maybe it's spiritual. It's not, the flesh and blood thing after. What happens is people get tired after a long period of time of, grasping at straws. And I see that. And then the other thing I see is these hoaxsters nowadays.
It's always been those.
Well, it's worse. I mean, I'm not going to say the guy, but have you seen these videos over Las Vegas of UFOs?
There's quite a few. Well, there's always interesting, questionable stuff out there. Of course, there always has been. There's always been hoaxers in this field. Unfortunately, some of it I think is probably reinforced by our own government. They like to keep us confused. Last thing the government wants to do is to really go on record and talk about what this actually is about, if they even know. At this point.
Well, I don't know. It just depends on what you believe. Did we actually have a crash in Roswell? Did we actually have one crash in the mid-40s? I mean, it's a lot of things. If you look at it, you either believe it or you don't believe it. I can't believe, Earl, that we're the only people in the campground. That's simple as that.
No, me neither. Well, you have to remember, I mean, there's a spiritual end to everything, right? There's a spiritual quality to you and myself, to everybody. I mean, humans, we may think that we're just like these meat bodies walking around, but I personally think that everybody has a spiritual side. Some people haven't gotten in connection with that. But, UFOs, I think that there's a spiritual side to this whole phenomenon as well. But spirits and ghosts, you don't get radar hits off of those. So there is a physical element to this as well. So it's not just, some sort of, ectoplasmic thing or hallucination that people are seeing, because people are getting, full-on radar hits and have been since the 1940s. So there's a physical element to this as well. It's something totally new that we're not used to thinking in this way about.
Right.
We think of physicality and we think of ghosts as two different things, but the UFO phenomenon, and if you go into quantum physics, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't react the way that things normally do in our day-to-day Newtonian physics lives. Newtonian physics worked really good for hundreds of years, but it seems like it does not work for the UFO phenomena. The UFO phenomenon has more in common with things like Schrodinger's cat or the double slit experiment, where things pop in and out of existence, and spooky action at a distance sort of stuff, except on a large scale. I think of UFOs as very large things that act like the very smallest things, like, the smallest subatomic particles. Have a lot of things in common with that. And it's definitely, I think that perhaps our visitors, I'm not going to go on record and say that I know exactly why they're visiting us, but I think I have like this one suspicion that perhaps they're trying to change our baseline reality, that they want us to look at reality in a different way than we normally do.
I don't know. The thing is, it's so much, I don't know. I don't know if you listen to the show much. Terry Lovelace was on. I've had him on about 5 different times. Now,
love Terry. Great friend.
Yeah, and he very credible. He was a former U.S. Assistant Attorney General. He's been a lawyer for many years, but when him and his buddy back in the mid-'70s decided, he was in the Air Force, a medic, to go camping, and his encounter turned into an abduction. And I tell you, with his story is it wasn't a friendly type of abduction. I mean, Harry was standing naked with his clothes in front of him, and they were examining him and doing all this stuff. But he was lucky. He was released. When that craft took off, he said there was people on that craft that wasn't released. So that tells me that they can't be that friendly towards humans if they're, kidnapping humans.
It's not all Reese's Pieces, that's for sure. I mean, I don't think that it's all malevolent either, because I've seen, things like, the synchronicities that I experience in my own life. I believe that those are related to our visitors, my own synchronicities, which are, meaningful coincidences that I kind of, they just happen one after another for me. And that kind of started when I first began investigating this phenomenon, and when I actually had a weird encounter of my own, which wasn't a friendly encounter. It was scary. I can't say it was malevolent necessarily, but it wasn't benevolent. It was just businesslike, and it certainly pulled the rug out from under me as far as my baseline conception of reality goes. That was 5 years ago, and I've had 5 years to kind of encapsulize this and look at it from every side. And I'm kind of the opinion that it's not malevolent, that it's not necessarily benevolent either. It just is. The way that we are with, say, animals in an animal sanctuary. Are we benevolent or malevolent? I mean, I think that we're just kind of watching. Say if it's a lion sanctuary, we paralyze them, we do medical experiments and tag them, and then we let them go most of the time, right?
Well, how about the labs that do experiment with animals and really,
exactly.
Like with monkeys, dogs, cats, and then they toss them in the trash afterwards. I mean, think about that. I mean, again, just these people that claim that they've been abducted, and then the craft takes off, and it takes off with humans on board. Well, those people are not being returned to their family. And if you check with the FBI statistics, there's 40 to 50,000 people are vanishing repeatedly, year after year after year, and they're not all being killed by serial killers. They're not being all murdered because they have those in a separate, different class. Something is happening. People are vanishing, not just in the United States, worldwide. But we don't know. A lot of people think, there's only one race of aliens come down. I don't want to use the word species, okay? This doesn't sound right. But one race of aliens coming down, I think it's multiple through the thousands of years. And who knows what we're dealing with. There might be some, it's checking us out like we check out the zoo, or they're curious. They don't do anything. They don't do any harm. They're just wondering how we survive. Then there could be the other ones that, maybe don't want us around here on this planet.
I think you've got something there, Gary. I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's all, it's not all E.T. phone home. It's not. I hear too many scary stories that are very credible, that are from very credible witnesses, people that are, military and pilots and people that we look up to, and some of them have kind of these philosophical encounters that are life enriching, and other people go through a horror show. It runs the gamut. I'm good friend. I'm friends with people that feel that it's all roses and sweetness, but I'm friends with people that think it's all malevolent as well. And I'm in the middle with it. It's sort of if you could go and judge humanity with the way that we treat animals, like you were saying earlier, animal testing and throw them in the trash, as you were saying. I don't think that we usually consider ourselves or our own culture completely evil, but this is the stuff that goes on in our own culture. And Paul Hynek is a friend of mine, J. Allen Hynek's son. I have the pleasure of calling him a close friend. And his whole attitude is that he thinks that they're indifferent. He feels like, that we're sort of like the ants in the anthill looking up at the skyscraper and trying to personalize that, and that the skyscraper and those that created the skyscraper don't really have anything. They don't care about the anthill. In fact, they might just as likely leave it alone as they might call an exterminator. So I don't know. There's a lot of views about this. I kind of fall right in the middle. I know a lot of people where they've had life-enriching experiences, myself as well. I've had some experiences I felt were really benevolent and enriching, but my initial experience was very, very scary. I really didn't know that I was going to be left alive. I wasn't given a kind telepathic message like lots of people are given. So I didn't know what to think. And I was kind of naive when I went into it.
Now, Earl,
I was literally doing like a CE5 kind of thing where I want to meet you. I want to meet you. I didn't say I want to meet nice aliens.
Now,
I
Earl,
didn't really direct it.
Earl, we need to go to break in 1 minute. And after the break, I want you to explain and tell the listeners about your encounter. I have mixed feelings. Sure. I had an encounter, and I don't go around talking about it, but I put it this way. In the it's a little bit early, about 2004, I had to go to the doctor. Medical conditions. He sends me to the hospital to have MRI done at Gig Harbor General Hospital. They send the results back to the doctor. I walk in the doctor's office. The first thing the head nurse says, "Gary, where did you get that metal next to your spine?" And I go, "What metal next to my spine?" "Well, the doctor wants to talk to you." I go in there and the doctor says, "Hey, did you ever have surgery? Let me look at below your neck, at your spine." And he's looking and he goes, "Well, I don't see anything where you've ever had surgery." I said, "When I was in the Army, I shattered my tailbone and there's the scar, but nothing up above, nothing. I was never hurt, nothing." And he goes, "Well, you got this little piece of metal. It's next to your spine." And I go, "Well, can you remove it?" Because I was alarmed. And he said, "No, if I go in there," and this is a surgeon, "if I go in there and remove it, you'll probably be in a wheelchair the rest of your life." That scared me.
Well, you and Terry had a lot to talk about, didn't you?
Oh, we
Terry
did.
had a similar thing happen.
Now, we need to go on break. When we come back from the break, I want to tell you a little bit more about what my thing was. And then I want to hear about yours. And then I want to address something Audrey put up about somebody in Las Vegas, because I am really flustered on that situation. I want to address that. And then I will give out the phone number. We normally don't take call-ins because my show, since I went back down to a 3-hour format, it gives me enough time to do the wacky news, do the news, and then interview somebody for an hour and a half. And the next thing I know, the show's over with. But, if we get a couple calls tonight, that is great.
That'd be fun.
We are talking to Earl Grey, very talented singer, great at playing the guitar. I wish I could play guitar as good as he could. I mean, the only guitar I can play is electric guitar, and it's where you put your fingers in your ears. But I tell you what, he's with MUFON. He's had an experience. We'll be back with Earl Grey right after this.
You and I, living in the strangest of times, on my hill, watching while the cities rise from the collapse